Hello everyone, my name is Elijah David, minister of the 12th Apostolic Sabbatarian Congregation of Antitype right now. In the Liberty Hill, Texas today is July 5, 2013, or it is the 27th day of the 4th month, 2017. We will start our first service today with a song entitled, Faith is a Victory. Encamped along the hills of light, ye Christian soldiers ride, and press the battle ere the night shall veil the glowing sky. Against the foe and veils below, let all our strength be hurled. Faith is the victory we know that overcomes the world. Faith is a victory. Faith is a victory. Oh, glorious victory that overcomes the world. His banner over us is love, our sword, the word of Yah. We tread the road the saints above with shouts of triumph trod. By faith they like a whirlwind's breath swept on o'er every field. The faith by which they conquered death is still our shining shield. Faith is the victory. Faith is the victory. Oh, glorious victory that overcomes the world. To him who overcomes the foe, white raiment shall be given. Before the angels he shall know his name confessed in heaven. Then onward from the hills of light, our hearts with love aflame, will vanquish all the host of night in Yahshua's conquering name. Faith is a victory. Faith is a victory. Oh, glorious victory that overcomes the world. The world, yesterday, today, and tomorrow, type and antitype. King of the north, king of the south. We're going to be dealing with that as our main subject. So we're going to start this today with P.T. Hollis writing on this track, the world yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We've given this to you several times before, but not like we're giving it to you now. We have an update. And so it says, we'll start you with the type. And I also want to start you with this chart. I believe this chart right here. Okay, now here's what we're looking at. Daniel saw these four beasts in vision. Nebuchadnezzar saw it first, and he had Daniel to interpret. And he saw these four beasts, Babylon, Medo, Persia, Greece, and Rome. This first one, Nebuchadnezzar represented. The next one was the Medes and the Persians. Darius and Cyrus and Darius, two kings of the Medes and the Persians. And then Grecia, Alexander the Great, king right here. Okay. Now, Alexander the Great, after his empire was split, represents the king of the south, the Ptolemaic the Ptolemaic dynasty. Rome represents the king of the north. Rome is on the north side of the Mediterranean, and Egypt, for the Ptolemaic government, the king of the south rule, was on the south. We know Egypt today are Egyptians. We know that they're primarily Arabs and Muslims. We know that the king of the north represents the Roman Empire, the Catholic Church today. Having said that, now let us go into our study on the very first page of The World, Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow by B.T. Harloff. And B.T. Harloff wrote this in 1941. He's using the World War II with Hitler as being the antitype in our day of fulfilling the last stand of the king of the north and the king of the south. Okay. Today, Obama is the king of the south. He's over the Egyptian empire, which are Arabs and Muslims. Okay. The Pope that was just elected, a Jesuit Pope for the first time, he represents the king of the north. So that's what the Bible is all about in Israel today, in that Middle East. It's between the king of the north and the king of the south. Right now, the king of the south is in charge. He had defeated the king of the north for the last time. But the prophecy says there in Daniel 11 that the king of the north defeats the king of the south in the end time. But they both plant their palaces of their tabernacles in the heart of the Holy Land. Both the king of the north, the Roman Catholic Church, and the king of the south, Obama, head of the southern dynasty of the Ptolemaic government, or dynasty. So now, having said that, let us just kind of go right on in to where it talks about today the king of the north and the king of the south. What they're doing today. Okay. Now, what we might do, though, is we might go and read a little bit in the Bible, taken from Daniel chapter 11. And let's see what we can learn from that. Let's go to about verse 15, verse 13. No, actually, let's back up to, let's just read chapter 11 of Daniel and the first 15 verses. It says, also, I, in the first year of Darius, this is Daniel talking, the Mede, whose kingdom is the second kingdom this side of the flood, Babylon is the first one, Nebuchadnezzar, and Cyrus and Darius represents the ones that overthrew Babylon. Okay, I stood to confirm and to strengthen him. He said, Daniel said, also I, in the first year of the Darius, the Mede, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him. And now will I show thee the truth. This is talking about this great angel that came to give Daniel understanding of his vision. That talked about in chapter 10. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia, and the 4th shall be far richer than they all. And by his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. And here's Grecia represented by this 3rd kingdom that succeeded Cyrus and Darius. Alexander, represented by these 4 leopards here, and by this leopard with the 4 heads. It says, and a mighty king shall stand up, that shall rule with great dominion and do according unto his will. Okay. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken and shall be divided toward the 4 winds of heaven. That was Alexander's that's Alexander's kingdom. Okay, represented by this leopard here. And not unto his posterity, though, nor according unto his dominion which he rule, for his kingdom shall be plucked up, even for the others beside those. Okay. And the king of the south shall be strong. Okay, the king of the south represents the Ptolemaic government, the polemic, and it says, and the king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him, and have dominion. His dominion shall be a great dominion. Okay, so as king of the south, this is the latter-day prophecy, what's going on right now. He has a great dominion. Obama has a great dominion. Okay. And in the end of years they shall join themselves together. For the king's daughter of the south shall come unto the king of the north to make an agreement. Okay. But she shall not retain the power of the arm. Neither shall he stand nor his arm, but she shall be given up, and they that brought her, and he that begat her, and he that strengthened her in these times. But out of a branch of her roots shall one stand up in his estate, which shall come with an army, and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north. So this would be the king of the south that has his headquarters in Egypt, which is on the south of the Mediterranean Sea. Rome has its headquarters in Italy on the north side of the Mediterranean Sea. Pretend that this in between here is the Mediterranean Sea. Egypt is down here. Italy, Rome is up here. This is the Mediterranean Sea. Kind of gives you an idea. But it says, but out of a branch of her roots shall one stand up in his estate, which shall come with an army, and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north. So now Obama has this Muslim Brotherhood today that he has endorsed, and he's placed himself at the head of it, and this is his army. This is his army that he has formulated for him to overthrow the Christian Muslims in the Middle East, especially in Egypt. And your Christian Muslims are called Coptic and Sunni Christian. They are Catholics. They're the army that belongs to the king of the north, the Roman Catholic Church, with the Pope, the Jesuit Pope, as a king of the north, ruling over the Coptic and the Sunni Christians that represents his army. That's who just rose back up the other day and overthrew Egypt and took Egypt back out of the king of the south dictator Morsi. That's been there for a year now. The king of the south set him up a year ago. And the king of the south, as I told you, is president of the United States. Okay, and it says, and into the fortress of the king of the north, and shall deal against them and shall prevail. Okay. Now this is the south coming against the king of the north, and they shall prevail. And shall also carry captives into Egypt their gods. Okay. So now, here's the king of the south. He come in and he took captives. He carried captives. In other words, he captured the Coptic and the Sunni Christians, and they immediately converted to the king of the south, or he would kill them. So when they converted to the king of the south, then he took them captive into Egypt. But these Coptics and these Sunnis are from the north of the Mediterranean. They're from the Turk land. They're from the land where the Rome is headquartered at. But the king of the south captured them. So it says, he carries captives into Egypt, their gods, with their princes and with their precious vessels of the silver and of the gold, and he shall continue more years than the king of the north. Okay. So the king of the south shall come into his kingdom, and shall return into his own land. So now, where is his own land? Where is the president of the United States right now dealing with in the Middle East? Egypt. That is really his own land, because he's the king of the south, and that's where his headquarters are, in Egypt, in Cairo. We just saw where the Coptic and the Sunni Christians just took back Cairo from the Muslim Brotherhood that Obama set up to set up his capital. Now they're in Cairo for the polemic dynasty. Okay, now it says, but his sons. So the king of the south shall come into his kingdom and shall return into his own land. All right, now, his own land, Egypt, is in Africa. And this king of the south, birthplace is in somewhere in the center of Africa and from Kenya. So this king of the south, Obama, actually his birth of origin is Africa. That's the land. That's what it said. So the king of the south, President of the United States today, shall come into his kingdom and shall return into his own land. Okay. So he goes north. He takes and defeats the king of the north. He brings captives back with him. He returns back to Egypt. That's where his headquarters are at, his own land. And Egypt is in Africa, northern Africa. But his sons shall be stirred up and shall assemble a multitude of great forces. It says, and his sons, more than one, shall be stirred up. And who are his sons? That's the brotherhood of the black Muslim that he set up over there to overthrow the Christians. What they call the ethnic religion. Christians mean that they believe in Yahshua, or in our term, Jesus Christ, and Yahweh the Father. Whereas the king of the south and his people do not believe in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, the way the Christians do. They don't even believe in him at all. But his sons shall be stirred up, and shall assemble a multitude of great forces, and one shall certainly come and overflow and pass through. Then shall he return and be stirred up even unto his fortress. And the king of the south shall be moved with choler, and shall come forth and fight with him, even the king of the north, and that is your Pope of the Catholic Church in Rome. And he shall set forth a great multitude, but the multitude shall be given into his hand. And when he hath taken away the multitude, his heart shall be lifted up, and he shall cast down many 10,000, but he shall not be strengthened by it. So when Obama gets through taking charge over the Middle East, the king of the south, then he starts raiding those countries and taking them over. He takes over Libya, he takes over Egypt, and he's going to take over all the nations of Africa that surrounds the Arab nation that surrounds Israel. They're in the Middle East, in the land of Israel. And he's already at least taken over a dozen already. For the king of the north shall return. Now here comes the Pope. Well, now, let's bring you up to par a little bit on these popes. Now, this last year we had Pope Benedict that was forced to retire. They used corruption as a reason for it, but that really wasn't the reason, because all popes have been corrupt. What the world don't know, and what only the Muslims knew, was that the Pope Benedict allowed Muslims to infiltrate the Vatican. And when this new Pope come in, this Jesuit Pope, I believe from down in Argentina and the South, first time has ever had a Pope elected from the South, America. And he's a Jesuit Pope, and the first thing he did was he took over the Vatican. He fired 30 infiltrated Muslims that was masquerading as cardinals, saying that they was interested in being converted to Catholicism. First thing that Black Pope did was he cleaned them out of the Vatican. Okay? Who were those 30 cardinals that were Muslims in the Vatican? Unheard of. They're part of the spy work of the King of the South, Obama. There's part of the spy work to get in there and to weaken the headquarters of the King of the North from inside, overthrow him from inside. But whenever the new Pope got in there and ousted him, then he took back charge of his fortress and he fortified again and made it strong again. That just happened in the last few months, folks. So now we have the Black Pope now. That is, he declared war now on the King of the South, and he's come back to Egypt and he's taken back over his dynasty, the Ptolemaic dynasty that he had captured from the King of the South earlier. He lost it and he captures it again. These kings of the North and King of the South, they exchange ownership of this property no less than 4 times over the years from the time that they were established in the beginning. Right? For the King of the North shall return and shall set forth a multitude greater than the former, and shall certainly come after certain years with a great army and with much riches. So now we got the Jesuit Pope that's now taking charge of his post of the King of the North. And now he's getting all the Jesuits, and which is around, no doubt by now there's around 30,000 Jesuits in the world. And they're all on the Pope's side. Whereas Pope Benedict, when he was Pope, before this Jesuit Pope, there weren't any Jesuits on his side, on Pope Benedict's side. But now, all the Jesuits of the world are on the side of this new Pope. And they're the ones that are the spy network for the Pope all over the world. And so they can go in and undermine all institutions, including the King of the South today. Okay, and so that's what's happened. This new Pope now has gotten in there, and he's fortified his fortress, and he's got his spies working for him now, and they're getting in and undermining this King of the South and that Black Muslim Brotherhood that Obama made a coalition with to overthrow all of those Arab kingdoms in the Middle East that surrounds Israel, Jerusalem, that surrounds Jerusalem. And in those times there shall many stand up against the King of the South. Also, the robbers of thy people shall exalt themselves to establish the vision, but they shall fall. So the King of the North, the Pope of the Catholic Church, shall come and cast up a mountain and take the most fenced cities. And what was the most fenced cities? Egypt was the most fenced city there. That had just been recently taken over by the King of the South. Okay. So now here we come, and so just as of the last 2 days, 3 days, right here in July, from July the 1st through the 5th today, the king of the north has come back, and the first thing he did was take the most fenced city in Egypt. And that was in Cairo. Cairo is the most fenced city in Egypt. That's the capital of Egypt. Okay? And the arms of the south shall not withstand him. Neither his chosen people, neither shall there be any strength to withstand. So all of a sudden, a year ago, the king of the south had the strength to go into Egypt and overthrow Mubarak, which Mubarak belonged to the king of the north, the president of Egypt, up to a year ago. And so Mubarak got overthrown. The king of the south took over and put up his own general in the capital at Cairo. And his own general has stood for 1 year, and now Morsi has been overthrown again by the king of the north. Has come in with his great army, and now he has overthrown Morsi. Okay. But he that cometh against him shall do according unto his own will. So the king of the north, the Roman Catholic Church, is going to come against this king of the south, and he's going to do according to his own will. And none shall stand before him. And he shall stand in the glorious land, which by his hand shall be consumed. Oh, he's going to stand in the glorious land, and we're going to read about where both of them plants their tabernacle and their palaces in the midst of the seas in the glorious Holy Land. Now let's look at this. Daniel 11:17. We're going to go ahead and read, I guess, this chapter, it looks like. He shall also set his face to enter with the strength of his whole kingdom, and upright ones with him. Thus shall he do, and he shall give him the daughter of women, corrupting her. But she shall not stand on his side, neither be for him. After this shall he turn his face unto the isles, and shall take many, but a prince for his own behalf shall cause the reproach offered by him to cease. Without his own reproach he shall cause it to turn upon him. Then he shall turn his face toward the fort of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall and not be found. Now, who is this going to be stumble and fall and not be found? It's going to be this king of the south that is being defeated right now. Then shall stand up in his estate a raiser of taxes in the glory of the kingdom, but within a few days he shall be destroyed, neither in anger nor in battle. Okay, I think we're going to go to V.T. Hollis' writing on this now. In his estate shall stand up a vile person unto whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom. So he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries. Okay, so actually we're talking about the king of the north that lost at the cross right here. This is the king of the north, Rome. This is the time it's talking about. He loses out to the king of the south right here at the cross, this side of the cross. Okay, and with the arms of a flood shall they be overthrown from before him, and shall be broken. Yea, also the prince of the covenant. Now we're going to pick up on page actually 57 of this tract of V.T. Hollis, the world yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And we're going to pick up the 11th chapter of Daniel and the summary that V.T. Hollis gives on that himself. And I'm just been reading Daniel chapter 11, and I read the first 22 verses already. Now we're going to pick up V.T. Hollis' commentary on the same thing. So it says, begin with Daniel 11. He says, And now will I show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia. And the fourth shall be far richer than they all, and by his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. remember Greece is Alexander's kingdom. And a mighty king shall stand up that shall rule with great dominion, and do according unto his will. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken, and shall be divided toward the four winds of the heaven, and not unto his posterity, nor according unto his dominion which he ruled. For his kingdom shall be plucked up even for the others beside those. Daniel 11, 2-4. Clear it is from these verses that the Medo-Persian Empire, the second one this side of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar's empire, was to be subdued by the mighty king Alexander, represented by this leopard right here. Okay, the Great. And subsequently be divided into four parts: to the south, to the north, to the east, and to the west. Alexander's camel right before the cross, Alexander's kingdom right before the cross was divided. Divided by who? This big imperial Rome, pagan Rome, represented by this beast here. Let's go read it. And subsequently be divided into four parts. Okay? To the south, to the north, to the east, to the west. Plucked up even for the others. Thus it was that after Alexander's death, the empire was split up, and one part assigned to each of the four generals who formed the league. First, Ptolemy, the Ptolemaic, assumed the regal power in Egypt. That's in the south. Second, Seleucus in Syria. Okay, now Syria is where the trouble is all at right now in the Middle East, right now. Okay, this is one of those. Okay, so Egypt is in the south, Seleucus is in the north, which is Syria, and Upper Asia. Third, Lamachus and Thrace and Asia Minor, as far as Taurus, and fourth, Cassander took as his share Macedonia. Universal History, page 100. It is well remembered that aside from stating the geographic locations of the four Grecian divisions, the prophetic record of the entire chain of the events is devoted unto the king of the south and to the king of the north. The acts of the king of the north, however, are especially emphasized, showing that the whole prophetic account is given particularly to expose his meddling with the holy things. Hence follows the enumeration of some of the identifying acts of the king of the north. Now keep in mind, the king of the north is the Pope. He's on the north side of the Mediterranean Sea. His headquarters is in the Vatican there in Italy, even today. So the king of the north, he defeats the king of the south. Okay? And takes his kingdom. Okay, so here's the king of the north, pagan Rome at the cross, defeats the king of the south, Egypt, Daniel 11, 15, 16, after which he stands in the glorious land. Now the Pope has been to Jerusalem, and back in the early part of 2000, this side, three ethnic groups got together, the Orthodox Jew, the Jewish rabbi leaders, and Arafat, the Palestinian leader at the time, vying to rule in Jerusalem. And there was a third party there. I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, it was the Christians. It was the Protestants. All three of those got together, and they agreed the Pope at the airport and brought him to Jerusalem. And they all agreed to make him the #1 spokesman and the #1 ruler over Jerusalem, when Jerusalem is set up for a headquarters for all religions of the world to come. They're going to place the Pope at the head of it. So that's what the Pope went there for. Okay. Number 2, in the glory of the kingdom, a raiser of the taxes stands up. Daniel 11:20. Number 3, his kingdom is overflowing with arms of a flood from before him. Now this raiser of taxes was Rome at the cross, I believe. Afterwards he works deceitfully and becomes strong with a small people. The small people were the Christian converts to the apostolic church. Okay? So he had captured them. They had apostatized to him. Number 5, he flatters wicked ones for their wickedness. Daniel 11:32. Number 6, he divides the land for gain. Daniel 11:39. I haven't gotten to that yet. He becomes strong the second time, yet is defeated by the king of the south. And now, here comes the king of the south. And he defeats the king of the north. Down here this side, way down between the cross in 1000 AD, the king of the south led a crusade against the king of the north and defeated him. He becomes strong the second time, yet is defeated by the king of the south. Daniel 11:25. Keep in mind that every time Rome from across the ocean comes down and takes charge of Jerusalem, he puts his headquarters in Jerusalem. He moves it from the Vatican in Rome to Jerusalem. Every time the king of the north takes charge and defeats the king of the south. And when the king of the south comes from Egypt and he defeats his king of the north, which his headquarters is in Jerusalem now, then he sits his palace up there in Jerusalem, the king of the south, the Arab world. And that's where Obama has set his headquarters at, is in Jerusalem. And the Pope has his headquarters there. So let's see what happens. Whichever king wins this last battle is the one that will then would have to be thrown out of Jerusalem when the 144,000 comes forth. Both kings speak lies at one table. Okay. So now it says he becomes strong. So he divides the land for gain. And he becomes strong the second time, yet he is defeated by the king of the south. Okay, so the king of the north had become strong by a second time, and now he's defeated a second time by the king of the south, Daniel 11:25, 29, and 30. And number 8, both kings speak lies at one table, Daniel 11:27. And number 9, having become strong the second time, and having engaged in an unsuccessful war with the king of the south, that's your Arab brotherhood. That's in Daniel 11:28. And number 10, then he pollutes the sanctuary of the strength and takes away the deity. Daniel 11:31. Okay, so that's what happened. Rome took and they developed an ecclesiastical Rome, and by 538 AD had formed the Inquisition, and they started the 1260-year Dark Ages, being in charge. This second phase of this imperial Rome area, ecclesiastical Rome, Catholic Church, ruling church and state for 1260 years, from 538 to 1798. And I said he pollutes the sanctuary, and that's when he polluted the sanctuary. Read Daniel chapter 7 about that. He thought to change times and laws. And Daniel 8 says he cast the sanctuary of truth down. That was the sanctuary of truth of Moses. He cast it to the ground, and he cast the deity down. Took away the deity, and he took away all the feast days of the sanctuary, and so forth. So he pollutes the sanctuary of strength and takes away the deity. Daniel 11:31. He forsakes the God of his fathers. Daniel 11:37. Acknowledges a strange God. Daniel 11:39. And disregards the desire of women. Daniel 11:37. Okay. Number 12, in the time of the end, he again defeats the king of the south. So isn't that what the Catholic Church is all about today? They don't have no desire for the women. That's the reason why you have them all trained, the priests and everything, to be homosexuals and pedophiles and everything else. Because they've been trained not to disregard the desire of women. That's in Daniel 11:37. And so number 12. In the time of the end, he again defeats the king of the south. Now here's your key. In the time of the end. And Daniel's prophecy is to be opened up in this 12th parabolic hour. Now this is where we're at today. In the time of the end, we get a Jesuit Pope in there. He outs all the Muslims and the Arabs that has infiltrated the Vatican in the north and become cardinals and so forth. And he finds them out, he routs them out, and he enters into the countries. Oh, and I said, in the time of the end, during the 12th parabolic hour. And now, here we go now. And we got a prophetic time card. I'll just tell you about it. He again defeats the king of the south, the Arabs leader, the Palestinians, the Muslims, and enters into the countries, overflows and passes over. So all those countries that the king of the south has conquered, the Muslim Brotherhood of Obama, they conquered all of the Arab countries surrounding Israel in the Middle East. They conquered them all. Well, this king of the north, the Pope, he comes in, he defeats the king of the south, and he takes over all these cities that the king of the south has taken over. Okay. Then once more stands in the glorious land. Now this Pope, once more, is going to stand in the glorious land. He stood in the glorious land in about 2001, 2002, something like that, with Arafat and the Orthodox Jews. He took his and claimed Jerusalem as his headquarters. Going to move from the Vatican to Jerusalem. So they give it to him. Israel endorsed it, the Greek Orthodox Jews, rabbis endorsed it, and so they granted it to him. But he lost it. So when Obama became president in 2009, and the king of the north, the Pope, lost Jerusalem as his headquarters. Obama then took over the Pope's place in Jerusalem. And following this, Edom and Moab and the chief children of Ammon escape out of his hand, Daniel 11:41. And the Libyans, here's your Libyans now, and that was the first thing that the king of the south overthrew was Libya, when he got one of the first ones he overthrew, and then he went overthrew Egypt next. That was just the last 2 years. Also the Ethiopians, and they're right there in Africa, just a little bit south of in a country of their own, and their country is as big as Egypt. The Ethiopians' country is as big as Egypt's country. So it says, Libyans, also the Ethiopians follow at his steps, Daniel 11:43. And number 13, tidings out of the east and out of the north trouble him. Therefore he goes forth with great fury, destroys and utterly makes away many, Daniel 11:44. That's what's happened since this king of the south has taken control again. Since 2008, he has followed on with the wars that's going on over there, and he used that because he had already had his military over there, and he's overthrew every Arab nation that surrounds Jerusalem. Okay, and he utterly made away many. Number 14, he also plants the tabernacle of his palace. This is the king of the south, the Arabs, between the seas and the glorious holy mountain. Yet comes to his end, and no one helps him. So after the king of the south, for the last time, plants his palace, the tabernacles of his palace. What does it mean, tabernacles? Got an S on it. It means that he's overthrown all of those Arab nations, taken and planted his tabernacle in Libya, Egypt, Ethiopia, all of those, Syria. That's what he's working on now, going to plant his tabernacle there. And all of those nations Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia in the south of Jerusalem. This is where the king of the south has planted his tabernacles on every one of those Arab countries. Okay, they're surrounding Jerusalem. Beginning with the ancient Medo-Persian Empire, ancient Medo-Persian Empire, Daniel 11, 2 and 3. The chain of events of this prophecy reaches on until the time that the king of the north plants the tabernacles of his palace, and this is the Pope now, coming back, and defeating the king of the south, and now he plants the tabernacles of his palace. Okay? Between the seas in the glorious holy mountain, Daniel 11:45, and culminates as the angel explained with the events of the Daniel 12. And at that time shall Michael, this is Yahshua, stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even at that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book, Daniel 12:1. Covering such a long period of time, many centuries, the dominion of the kings, whose history is chronicled in this prophecy, obviously has passed under a number of regimes. Okay? Seeing that no human being has lived on and on throughout these centuries, it is obvious that the titles King of the South and King of the North are applicable to two lines of rulers. Now pay attention to this. Seeing also that no government or kingdom has stood intact throughout the ages, it likewise is obvious that these two lines, having undergone many supersessions of sovereigns, many regimes, for this reason, the Bible differentiates them by their lineal geographic titles. It is now clear from the scriptures that the Grecian division south of the Mediterranean, the Ptolemaic, first receives the title King of the South. That's your Arabs nation, Egypt. Whereas the division north of the Mediterranean, the Lysimachien, first receives the title of King of the North, and that's at Rome, Italy. That's your pagan Rome. In relation to the territories of these two lines of rulers, the Mediterranean therefore becomes a point of compass from which they must be reckoned. So the King of the North has his headquarters on the north side of the Mediterranean, and the King of the South has his headquarters on the south of the Mediterranean down in Egypt. Okay? So the Mediterranean Ocean separates the north, the Turkey, where actually the Turkey, which are Muslim, and separates that from the south, which is Africa. Africa is on the south of the Mediterranean, and Turkey, the land of Turkey, is on the north. And they're both Muslims. They're both Muslims. And Israel is just right due east of all of that. To this point, the prophetic vision has been open to all. But from here on, it has remained closed. Though many have tried to open without a key, a locked door is, of course, to break the door. But being unbreakable, the locked door of the prophecy is impossible to open without the key. Now here's where the rub comes in. It says in Revelation 3:7, he that hath the key of David. It says in Isaiah 21 and 22, that whoever opens up this prophecy, that he has laid the keys of David on his shoulder. And so those keys were given to Peter at the cross to open up the prophecies for his day. Okay, those keys have been given to antithetical Elijah, David, in our day. And so I'm opening up these prophecies for the first time, giving you the understanding on the prophecies of Daniel, especially concerning the king of the north and king of the south. A simple and positive way not to lose sight of the identity of these two kings is to let the pen of the prophecy trace on a map of the history the successive rulers of Egypt and Palestine. For the titles of the kings who conquered and who lost these ancient countries are chronicled in this prophetic chapter to preserve the identity and to expose the evil intent of both the king of the south and the king of the north. Remember now, we begin with the king of the south, rules the glorious land, Palestine, along with Egypt. And the king of the north takes the glorious land twice, Daniel 11:16 and 41. If he takes it twice, then he must have lost it once. So if the Catholic Church or the Pope has taken it twice, he must have lost it once. Consequently, both kings ruled it twice and lost it twice. So, the king of the south, the Arabs, have ruled the kingdom and twice, and the king of the north has ruled it and lost it, and they both have lost it twice. But the king of the north, the last to rules it in the time of the end, here in the 12th parabolic hour. That's the reason why they had that change up of the popes here in the Vatican today, just this last year. Okay, and ever since that the Jesuit Pope come in and took over, he's cleaned house. He's cleaned all the henchmen that belong to the king of the south out of the Vatican, cleaned them all out of there. Okay. But the king of the north, the last to rules it in the time of the end, and the time many run to and fro, and the time of knowledge has increased. Daniel 12:4. Our time. Mark this carefully. For these transactions of the land provide the key to the identity of these kings from the time of Alexander's death unto our time. The angel emphatically declared that the kings to rule the Palestine together with Egypt were to be as follows. First, the king of the south, the Ptolemaic government, or dynasty. Second, the king of the north, pagan Rome. Third, the king of the south, Turkey. And fourth, the king of the north, England. Here in the following 25 pages are the details of the prophecy correlated with history. In the light of these foregone fundamentals, facts, we should now be able to rightly evaluate the unfolding of the scroll and to intelligently match the page of the prophecy with the page of the history as we pass from the time of the first northern regime, that of the Lamatian, on beyond the time of the second northern regime, that of the victorious Seleucidae, who subjugated the Lamatian dynasty, and on to the time of the third northern regime, that of the Rome, the power which overthrew the Seleucidan kingdom. And as the prophetic account was given to expose the work of the king of the north during the third regime, we are therefore led to examine the four-numbered group of the prophetic acts as pointed out on page 59 to 61. Number one, the north defeats the south, takes Egypt and Palestine. That's just exactly what happened yesterday, here in July of 2013. The north has gone back into Egypt and taken over Egypt and Palestine, meaning they've taken over the Palestinians as well. So the king of the north shall come and cast up a mount and take the most fenced cities, and the arms of the south shall not withstand, neither his chosen people, neither shall there be any strength to withstand. But he that cometh against him shall do according unto his own will, and none shall stand before him. And he shall stand in the glorious land, Palestine, which by his hand shall be consumed. Daniel 11:15 and 16. This scripture definitely brings us unto the time of the third regime in the kingdom of the north, that of the pagan Rome, which completely overthrew the first regime of the kingdom of the south, that of the Ptolemaic dynasty, Egypt and Palestine then passed from the hands of the king of the south, the Ptolemaic, that's your Arabs, into the hands of the king of the north, Rome, in the year of 63 BC. For the Roman general Pompey marched against Jerusalem. Syria had become a Roman thing. The battleground by Haler-Belach, and in 31 BC, Egypt became a Roman province. New Student's Reference Book. Since the power which overthrew the Ptolemaic dynasty and took Egypt and Palestine is by the angel identified as a king of the north, pagan imperial Rome. And since pagan Rome was that power, it follows that the title king of the north, after passing from Lamachus, whose rule was the first northern regime, to Seleucus, which rule was the second northern regime, fell to the Roman emperors, whose rule was the third Roman regime, was the third northern regime. See map 4, page 17. Okay, so here's the third of beasts that rule this northern kingdom. With this supersession of regimes, we are brought down to about 31 BC, at which time Rome ruled not only the dominions of Lamachus, Seleucus, and Ptolemy, but also the dominion of Cassandra Alexander's entire empire. Number 2, in the glory of their kingdom, then shall stand up in his estate a raiser of taxes, in the glory of the kingdom, Daniel 11:20. Augustus Caesar, the Roman emperor, is the one who taxed the world, and it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And this taxing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria, and all went to be taxed, everyone into his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee out of the city of Nazareth into Judea unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and the lineage of David. Luke 2:1-4. As this raiser of the taxes was to stand when the kingdom was in its glory, the statement implies that its glory was to wane. Number 3, overflown by a flood, alludes to Egypt and Palestine. Okay, we're going to bring this study to a close at this point. We're going to pick it up right there on our next study and spend a whole hour dealing with this here King of the North and King of the South here in the end time, here in this 12th hour in 2013. All this from here on. And so watch for my next CD to go up on my website, folks. When you hear this in here, watch for the next one. It's going to go up today also. This brings us to the rest of this hour. Contact Jesse at the 11th hour. Call on us. Number 11. Click on the audio archives. Hear this message and more. We're going to close now with a song that I've written entitled, Yah sent his army here before to conquer and to win. mercy he would have long ago made him an example for all the world to know, that there is only one true king who rules upon his throne, and that there are a people whom Yahweh calls his own. For they have the hope of nations they were all long ago. But now the time has come at last for Joshua to lead the show. For Joshua is here today as he was back then. The captain of the Yahweh's host has met him once again to lead his great army against the mighty foe, and finally gain the victory over sin and all its woe. He'll send his army here before to conquer and to win the world that had gone astray, the world that's lost in sin. For the hope of mankind would be saved if only they could see that the one great sacrifice made at Calvary